on the 3 checkmates today. These are the 3 like cornerstone checkmates of how to play chess, essentially. So it's king, queen, and rook, king and queen, king and rook. And this is by far the easiest one. What these 3 checkmates have in common is for the defending king, which is the black king, we're going to trap him on the edge of the chessboard. All the checkmates that we're going to discuss in class have that in common. That it's all about making a box, making it smaller, getting the king trapped on the edge of the board and getting checkmate. So this is one of the most important skills to learn because you can play an amazing opening. Your opponent can play badly and you can get up material and win pieces. But then when it gets to the point when you get to the end game, if you don't know how to checkmate and don't know how to win the game, you can't win. And some of you guys, after learning piece movement this past week, have run into this problem. So you're going to learn the technique this week when we're working on checkmates to knock this out. So far, we've got as a memory marker that we want to get the king, the defending king, to the edge of the board. Of course, our objective is to not lose any of the pieces that we have. Because if we get to the point where it's king versus king, what is that?
Stalemate.
It's a draw. Well, technically a stalemate, we'll look at in a minute, that's when you have no legal moves for one side. But this type of draw is called insufficient material. Insufficient basically meaning we don't have enough, right? Don't have enough to keep going. Okay? So let's go ahead and knock this out. So very first thing, it's about making a box. So I'm going to put my queen and rook far away from the king so the king can't touch him and bother him. Now, this is called the staircase method because, as you'll see, now that I have my queen and rook off to the side, notice how the queen is attacking every single one of these squares. Can this king ever move into the attack?
No.
You can never move into check, right? So, next, when he moves, what do you think? Left leg was the queen, now right leg is the rook. Check again. Can the king capture the rook?
No.
No, because again, you'd be moving into check because the queen is protecting the rook. The queen is cutting off all of these squares. And now the rook is cutting off all of these squares. And you start to see the pattern, how it's going to be left, right, left, right.
Yeah.
And you're just going to walk him up the board. Very simply. And remember, I said we want to trap him on the edge of the board. This is why. This is checkmate. Because notice we try the 3 rules of check. Rule number 1. Can I move my king out of check? No. Rule number 2. Can I capture the piece that's attacking me?
No.
No. Rule number 3. Can I use any of my friendly pieces to block the attack?
No.
No, no, no. And when you try all 3 rules of check and you're still in check, you can't get out of check. That's it. Game over. You lose. Okay? Or in this case, we're playing white. We all won. Positive vibes. Alright, so, next one. Everybody got this one. This is the easiest one. So on the test, on Friday, if you just get this checkmate, that's a 50. Okay? Alright, so next. Let's go to mate with the lady. So, again, what's the first rule?
Can I get?
It's something about the edge.
Like boxing it up.
Okay, yeah, we want to make the box smaller. We want to get him to the edge of the board. Now watch how the queen does this, because there's a couple rules with this, some memory markers that you can use to help you remember how to do the checkmate with the king and queen. Everybody at this point knows how the knight moves, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you keep your queen a knight's move away from the defending king, or the black king in this case, you can continually make the box smaller. So let's see what I'm talking about here. So if I put my queen right here, notice how it's a knight's move away. Make sense?
Yes.
So when he moves his king, knight's move away. Moves his king, knight's move away. Now here's the point where people get in trouble. They follow this knight's move away too seriously. Here is the exception. If the king is in the corner and I go a knight's move away with the queen, this is an example of stalemate. A lot of you have had questions on this because it is black's turn in this position, and notice how every square around the king is attacked, but the king himself is not attacked. Therefore, black cannot move without moving into check. We know we can't move into check, so the game is drawn. Question?
What if like you can't move your king and like you have other pieces?
If you have other pieces, you can move the other pieces. Unless say they're pawns and they're blocked and the pawns can't move. That's the only other exception. So basically, if I had you define stalemate, stalemate is going to be defined as I cannot move at all. It's like normally centered around the king because you just have the king left, but I have no moves that I can make at all. That is stalemate. Everybody clear on that one?
Yes.
All right, question?
Does that mean it's tied or white wins?
It is a draw. That is a tie. And remember, there are 3 results in chess. If you win, you get a point in a tournament. If you draw, you get 1/2 of a point. And if you lose, you get 0 points. Okay?
When there's no more pieces left and it's only the king and the other king, that's a stalemate too.
That is insufficient material. We do not have enough stuff to keep playing. That is also a draw, though. That's a tie.
Well, like,
All right. Come in this way and sit down at the computer, please. Who's asking the question? Yeah, wait.
Alright, so if when you like move to the like blue spot like right there, it's like close enough. What do you like the queen like go up there like trap him to and like on the other side right there?
Let's go ahead, because I haven't discussed it with this class yet. Let's go ahead and work on notation a little bit. I'm going to teach you chess language in like 30 seconds. Okay, notice we have A through H on the bottom and 1 through 8 on the side. Alright? So when doing chess notation, you see like the last move, it has K, A8. That means the king moved to A8. Okay? It's pretty much that simple for our purposes right now, what you need to know for notation. Later we'll have a quiz on it. Very, very easy. Nothing to worry about. So, could you tell me where you're talking about moving the queen using notation instead? Remember, don't get your face in the camera. No worries. Can you see it from there? All right. Which square are you talking about?
I move the queen like to the blue spot like one right.
So you're talking right here?
No, like
where I was talking about, or here?
No, like move.
All right.
Space.
Letters and numbers. Help me out, Wayne.
To the left.
One space to the left. Okay, you were saying dark square. That's a light square, but whatever. You know.
I mean
That's a check.
I mean that like if it's like a cross up and then like checkmate the king like from the blue spots on top of the where the king is.
Well, in this situation,
B7.
this is a good question because the queen by herself can never checkmate in this scenario because we're just going to dance back and forth. And if you dance back and forth 3 times, that's a draw, right? 3 move repetition. If you do the same thing 3 times, draw. So in this case, remember what I said. We want to trap the guy on the edge of the chessboard. So, notice the difference between here and the stalemate position we just had. This king can move back and forth. That's all he can do. Fantastic. Because now, this is the next phase. I've made the box as small as I can with the lady. Lady got him in the corner. Gave him only 2 moves to go back and forth with. So as he's going back and forth, now it's time to bring the piece that's going to help us win. So he goes into the corner. We bring the king all the way up. And there's checkmate there, there, or there. Okay, makes sense because the king protects the queen. So, do we see the similarities with the first checkmate and the second one? Trapping the guy on the edge of the board, taking away all the squares while attacking him. Making sure our piece is protected. In this case, it's the queen. Question?
Would it still count as a tie since he made the same move more than 2 times?
No, both sides have to make the same.
Oh, okay.
Yes. My king was going all the way up the board making different moves. Good question. Yep.
I was gonna ask.
Good. We're all on the same page. All right. I like the thinking. All right. Now we've only got one more checkmate for today. Yes, Kai?
Is it Gilly Kasparov?
I have no idea where that question came from, so we'll go ahead and let you just simmer on that one for a bit. Okay, so let's go to the king and rook checkmate. Now this one is the hardest of the 3 today, but it works under the same principles. So if I asked you what is the difference between the queen and the rook, what would you say?
Queen can move anywhere.
Queen is the diagonals, right? The rook vertical and horizontal, he can do all that. But he's weak on the diagonals. So the queen was able to get the king into the corner by herself, using that knight's move away that we talked about. To do the king and rook checkmate, your king is always going to need to be attached to your rook, protecting it, and making the box smaller. Making sense? Okay. So, first step, we want to make the box as small as we can. So, see how we've made the box small? He attacks our rook. If we move the rook in any way right now, we will be giving the black king more options. So we want to move our king to protect our rook. So the rule is, once the king moves, we ask, can we make the box smaller by moving our rook? If the answer is no, we move our king. But in this case, can we make the box smaller?
Yes.
So using chess notation, where would you move the rook?
C3.
C3, excellent. It takes one more, and remember, ranks are numbers. First rank, second rank, third rank. Files are letters. A file, B file, C file. So right then, when we move over, we took the C file away from him, so he can never touch that file again. So when his king moves, if we move our rook, will it make the box smaller? No. So what do we need to do? Move the king. So again, we ask the question. Answer's no, because we can't make the box small with our rook, so we move our king. And sometimes you have to move the king numerous times to get to a position like this. I can make the box smaller, so move the king, make the box smaller, move the king. I made the box smaller, and I'm getting him all the way to the corner. Now you see, same thing as the last checkmate. We're giving him 2 squares to move back and forth in. This is the easiest way to do it. Now, just like the other checkmate, we want to get what's called in endgames the opposition. When I hear the word opposition, I think about in football with opposing lines that are matching up against each other. That means I want my king directly in front of his king, so he's against the wall. Makes sense how that's happened here? My king is in opposition with his king. So when in this position, it would be great if it was black's move, because he'd go in the corner, I would move my rook up and it'd be checkmate. But it's not. If I move my rook any of these squares over here, his king's going to be able to run. Everybody see that?
Yeah.
That's why we need to move it down. That forces him into the corner. Get in your hole. Squish. Right? So, today we looked at the 3 most basic checkmates. The staircase checkmate, that's with the queen and rook. The king and queen checkmate. And the king and rook checkmate. If you know these 3 checkmates, that makes up predominantly how almost all beginner games end. Question?
Why wouldn't you just move to G8?
Because the rook's covering that square, right?
Yeah, but before you were at F6, yeah. But why wouldn't you just move to G8?
He was on G8.
Yeah, but then why would it force him to go in the corner?
He can't move in anywhere else because it would be check.
Oh, true.
See how the rook's covering these? And the king's covering these.
Yeah.
So the only option he has is to go in the corner and get wrecked.
Yeah.
Okay? Alright. So, any more questions? Yeah.
Is the queen, if you take the queen, is there more points than a bishop?
Absolutely. Like, I'm not one that takes a lot of stock in the point system, because normally the point system is a pawn is 1, a knight and bishop are both 3, a rook's 5, and a queen's 9. But I very, very much disagree with this scale, because I'll give you just one example that turns the scale on its head. When a pawn makes it to the other side of the board, what happens?
It turns queen or...
Predominantly, you're going to get a queen because it's the most powerful piece, right? So is that pawn still worth 1?
No.
So you mean to tell me that the value of pieces can change under certain circumstances?
Yeah.
You need to think about each piece in every situation to go, what's strong and what's weak. Later, when we're looking at lessons on the differences between knights and bishops, you'll really see that the scale is completely wrong in valuing knights and bishops at 3, because it's all about the pawns. Think about it this way. In an open position where there's not a lot of pawns, the bishop can move very easily, right? But if there's a ton of pawns on the board and it's all locked up, the bishop can't do anything. But the knight, he can hop over the wall and get wherever he needs to.
Yeah.
So in open positions, bishops are normally better than knights. And in closed positions with a pawn structure lock, knights are normally better than bishops. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll hit more concepts as we go forward with our lessons, but that's what I wanted to cover with you guys today. So at this point, we will get out the boards, and you guys will just use the pieces and practice the checkmates that we looked at today. You'll be tested on Friday. Stop button.
Okay, thanks. This year my fingers.